Mr. Baird, you are the CEO of one of the world's leading trade and investment promotion organizations. What attracts you to emerging Europe, and how do you see the countries in the region fitting your global map?
Well, they are really a very high priority indeed for us. At the moment, trade and investment is hugely important for the UK. Because, as you know, we are struggling to get back into strong, sustainable growth after the great crises of 2008. As a result of those, we've had to act very strongly on our debt in the UK, which has meant that domestic consumption has been reduced. So we are looking to drive growth through exports and through attracting investment. The challenge for us is that some of the markets that we have performed most strongly in the past, the markets of Western Europe, the United States, are themselves weak. And we need to find new markets with real growth potential and perform more effectively in those markets. And the big emerging markets of the world have that. So we have markets from Asia, markets from Latin America, and markets from Africa where there is real growth and we need to work. But we have a group of markets even more close to ourselves, which have huge growth potential. And Poland, since we're sitting there, sitting here at the moment, is one of those. I mean, Poland is a large economy, growing strongly, and it is much closer to the UK. It is part of the same single market as the UK. It is more familiar to the UK, it is better regulated than many of the other growth markets in the world. So it has that perfect balance. It is between our developed traditional markets on the one hand and the big emerging markets that are further, and it has the good characteristics of both.
But last year's the UK's trade with emerging Europe was around £40 billion. And at the same time, Germany's with Poland alone was around 55 billion pounds. How do you explain that?
Well, I think that traditionally this has not been a huge focus for the UK as an export market. We found, as I say, we found our markets elsewhere. But it's also worth remembering that just because we have a low base doesn't mean that we don't have room to grow. In fact, we definitely have room to grow. So our figures last year were, although well behind Germany, were 15% up on the year before. So I think some of the particular, what I hope will happen over the next period is two things. Firstly, that we will see far more companies from the UK seeing emerging Europe as a real opportunity than they have in the past, for exactly the reasons that I say, that it's a familiar market, close to Europe, part of the single market, but has growth, emerging market levels of growth and growth potential. And secondly, some of the sectors where we have particular expertise going forward are really relevant to the next phase of growth in this part of the world. So our financial services expertise is absolutely relevant for the kind of development and growth of infrastructure and major energy projects which are being taken forward here.
We're going to talk about the industries in a second, but I would like you to tell me what kind of growth prospects for the UK in this region, based on other country benchmarks that the UK is successful, you see right now. So what kind of growth perspective do you see here?
In this part of the world, I think there is huge growth potential. And the growth.
You said that last year was 15%, but what numbers sort of are you expecting in years to come?
We're looking at least in terms of our own engagement with the region, at least to double our export performance between now on 2015, and that will be to the region as a whole. And as I say, I think that particularly because growth in this area of the world will really go forward over the next period, because you have major projects on the infrastructure side, on the energy side going forward, and we wish to help with those. But also, a growing middle class that wishes to consume the products that we produce. And for those reasons, we look forward to great growth over the next period.
So you mentioned investments in infrastructure, energy projects. What other industries or opportunities do you see for UK companies in the region here? Which industries?
So to take those two areas first of all, the major infrastructure projects that are being taken forward in this part of the world definitely provide a range of opportunities for the UK. In financing those projects, in providing expert advice in those projects, in managing the projects, and in the supply chain that leads into those projects. In all of those areas, the UK is extremely strong. On the energy side, as the region develops its nuclear capacity, that provides huge opportunities for partnership. The UK has a 60-year history in nuclear energy. We're going through a very exciting phase ourselves on the nuclear side over the next period with a $100 billion investment in our own infrastructure. These are areas that we can work very closely together. But there are a whole range of other sectors where it seems to me that the UK and the region can work very closely together. Certainly in the area of retail, a number of our big retail companies are increasingly successful in this area, and Tesco's is one that I would mention, which has a huge number of stores across the region, is very successful here. Green technologies and our expertise in sustainability is another area where there are huge opportunities for partnership going forward. Telecommunications and ICT is another sector where, again, there is huge potential for working together.
You already mentioned the growing wealth of the people here in the region. How do you see that helping the companies, UK companies, entering the market here, sell their products?
Well, I think it covers a whole range of different sectors. What we're seeing in the region is of course a huge appetite to purchase some of the luxury and higher end goods that are produced in our country. So a lot of companies in that space are being very successful. When I go to Prague later in the week, we'll see some of the British companies such as TM Lewin, such as Agent Provocateur, such as Marks and Spencer, very successful in that country and indeed more widely in the region. But also people will look to purchase better education services, purchase better health services, and that also provides huge opportunities for UK companies, and not just companies, so universities, providers of vocational training, providers of educational products in one area, and on the health side, builders of hospitals, operators of hospitals, companies which train doctors, nurses and health professionals, companies which finance that kind of activity, pharmaceuticals companies. Our big pharmaceutical companies, GSK and AstraZeneca, are very active in the area. So in all those areas, I think huge potential which come from a growing middle class, which is more discerning about the products and services which it wishes to buy.
Most of the region entered the European Union already 7 years ago. Do you think that fact has somehow or should somehow help UK companies come here and invest, or should it somehow attract them to come to the market?
Well, it's really important that they do see it in those terms, because of course it means that we're both part of the same single market, that we have tariff-free access to each other's countries, that it goes well beyond that as well, and that in terms of single market we have levels of access which are simply not available to our companies outside that area. And I also think that it's very important that companies think about where they locate to produce for a bigger market. And many British companies look to come here and set up production as well as simply selling into these markets, because these are very good places to get that right balance between cost and skill to import into other markets within the single market and indeed beyond the single market. So we're very, very keen to encourage our companies to internationalise and access the opportunities that are here.
Different question. When people here, and sometimes investors who come already to the region, or who have come to the region already, when they are asked what assets the region has, most people would say it's the people. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I think what you have in this region is highly skilled and educated workforce, which in many cases is highly cost competitive as well. But it's not just that. I mean, I think the opportunity, the wider opportunity, is that it is a region which is at an earlier stage in its growth potential, and therefore it needs to develop its infrastructure, it needs to develop its energy and natural resources, it needs to develop its skill set more broadly and to get into new sectors. And for all those reasons there are great opportunities for partnership.
When you talk to UK companies, when you mention entering the market here, what are the companies usually concerned about if they want to ever come here?
I think there's a big issue around lack of familiarity. I think for all the reasons that we discussed earlier, the fact that British companies have not traditionally engaged in this part of the world, at least the broad range of smaller and mid-sized companies haven't, many of our big companies have. The lack of familiarity means that they need expert advice on the particular markets. They're definitely, they see this as an area which is very similar to the UK in terms of wishing to bear down on regulation, so they regard that as a big positive of this part of the world. So those are the kinds of issues I think that are at the top of people's mind: lack of familiarity, understanding this part of the world better, and how you access activity here, and also how you deal with the regulatory environment here.
And how do you help British companies which want to enter the market? How does UKTI help them?
So we have a range of products to help businesses, which start from helping those companies which have never exported before to understand how to develop an export strategy in the first place. We then provide services around market research for their individual products in particular markets, which would also cover issues like the legal and regulatory framework for their particular product. We help them find business partners and customers, whether they need for their model a distributor or a joint venture partner. We help them to find those. We help them promote their products in particular markets, either through exhibitions, through using our teams in embassies to help them understand the media environment locally, and we lead a range of trade missions as well. So it's essentially a set of products which help companies understand markets better and how to operate within those markets more effectively.
So keeping my fingers crossed for the results. Thank you very much for the interview. It was very nice to talk to you.
Very good to talk to you.